Hello! I'm so excited. I'm going to show you how to hand sew a mask today using no sewing machine. In fact, this mask I'm wearing right now, I just finished sewing. So what are we going to need to sew our mask? We're going to need a pair of scissors, some fabric, and a needle. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take our pattern and we're going to trace it onto the polypropylene. And I'm going to cut out the shape. Next, we're going to cut out our fabric. Now, I'm going to just lay the pattern on the fabric. I'm not going to use a Sharpie to trace it, and I'm just going to kind of trim the fabric along the edge of the pattern. Now, at this moment, this doesn't have to be exact. You're going to see, we're going to go ahead. Here's our patterns that have been cut. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pin them together. So I want to make sure I put them in the right order. And we're going to do polypropylene on the outside and the fabric on the inside. You're going to see it's going to make a sandwich. So once again, make sure your fabric, notice how it's got the longer edge on it than the polypropylene. Make sure that you have that because we're going to use that for our fold over. Next, you're going to see that I'm pinning the fabric together. And once I get it pinned, this is where I'm going to go in and trim all of it so it has the same line. So that's where the initial cutting you can just kind of estimate, because once you pin the fabric sandwich, that's when I'm going back in and making sure everything has the same line on it. So you're going to see here I'm trimming across the nose cone area. And I just have 3 pins in there. I'm impressed at how well pins will hold that into place while I prepare to hand sew the edge. So I've threaded my thread through the eye of the needle, and I also put a knot at the end of it. So when I begin stitching up the nose of the mask, it doesn't go all the way through. I will often put a dot of clear nail polish on all knots, usually when I complete my sewing. That way the knots definitely won't come undone. And with this nice thick yellow thread, we're going to get a nice top stitch. We won't see it on the nose here. As I come to the end of the stitch, we're going to do a knot tie off. And I'm actually going to do kind of, if you're familiar with what a half hitch is, I'm going to wrap around the edge of the fabric. This is also a knot that we use in bookbinding. You're going to see I was pointing out a little spot where I kind of missed the edge of the polypropylene, but we got all the fabric, and that's going to be on the inside of the mask. So here I am wrapping around the edge, and I'm going to poke through and make a loop. And then I hold the loop, and here's another angle so you can see the loop. And then I'm going to run the thread through the loop and pull it off, and then trim it. And you can kind of see the half hitch there on the edge. I think I ran 2 or 3 of them. I technically could do the whole edge just like binding a book. And now here comes the exciting part. We're going to fold our mask out, and we're going to take a look at, there it is. There's basically the cone of the mask. Next, we're going to strip some black trim fabric to go around the edges of the mask, roughly about 1.5 inches, 2 inches. 2 inches is probably better. Now, with this trim, we're going to wrap around the edge, and we're actually going to roll it and then roll it again so there's no exposed edge to the cut fabric. And then we're going to pin it in place. Now, this short clip makes it look like I did it pretty fast, but it took me like a half hour to get this roll correct and then get it pinned correctly. So you may want to pause the video after watching me do this once or twice. It's a real finesse kind of thing. Take your time, but it's worth doing it quite right. I was quite happy with my end results. And you're going to see I kind of look at both sides, pin it, position it, pin it a few more times. And basically when you like the way it looks, then it's time to start sewing it down. Here I'm. So now that we have our trim, our black trim pinned to the bottom of the mask, let's pick up our needle and thread, our yellow thread, which is going to do some nice colorful top stitching on the black trim. And we're just gonna, oh, don't forget to knot the end of your thread. And once again, this is kind of a thicker thread. It's actually kind of like 3 or 4 threads in one weave. So you could, if you want thinner yellow thread, you could take this apart into smaller pieces and do 2 threads or 1 thread. So I'm just going back and forth, in and out. And when I get to the center of the mask, I'm going to tie it off on that center. Yeah, there you are. We're going to tie it off in there, kind of wrap it around, half hitch through the loop, however you want to do that. And then I'm actually going to continue and sew in from the other side, in towards the nose of the mask again. So here I am taking the nose piece and I'm wrapping it in fabric so that I don't have the plastic and metal against my nose. So I'll have fabric against my bridge of my nose. And this is an old coffee tie and I'm trimming it to size. It's a little longer than I like. I don't want it poking into my cheeks. And once again, just wrap it in thread. And then I actually ended up sewing the fabric to the piece. It's just kind of, in fact, I've even been thinking about adding some, like, I don't know, some flannel or some sheepskin because my nose is really sensitive and the fabric wasn't quite enough. Poking through the coffee tie required quite a bit of strength. I used some pliers to pull the needle through the plastic coffee tie. And then here I am knotting the knot again. Make sure it doesn't come untied. Now, with the nose guard completed, there's a couple ways you can install it into the mask. You want to put it pretty much right where the black edging is. And you can either sew the nose bridge in, or I ended up gluing mine in with some Gorilla Glue. There I am trimming the edges. Oh, and now we're darting the corners. Now I'm going to dart the 4 corners, and these become open loops where you can thread your tie straps or your elastic or however you're going to fasten this to your head. A lot of people like elastic around the ears. I personally am not a big fan of elastic around the ears. So I'm rolling that over and sewing that. There's darting the other corner. And I'll end up running a shoelace through there. And what's nice about that is if the shoelace breaks or whatnot, I can easily thread another shoelace. Oh, here it is. Shoelaces are in, the darts are in so that it cups on my cheek. And this is me putting and fitting the mask onto my face for the first time. I'm pretty excited about it. It's Christmas colors. I'm pretty stoked about it being the first mask I've ever hand sewn. All right, thank you very much. Enjoy your mask making. And remember, we're all in this together.
We're all in this together.
Todos juntos en esto.
我们永远在一起。 우리 모두 다 같이 이겨내요.
みんなで頑張りましょう。
We're all in this together.